So, let's go. Number 1. Soyuz 11. Picture a perfect landing. The capsule comes down through the morning sky over Kazakhstan, the parachute blooms, the soft landing rockets fire at the last second, and the little metal ball settles upright in the grass like it was placed there by hand. Textbook. Beautiful. The recovery team runs toward it across the steps, smiling because everything went right. 3 men just spent the longest time anyone has ever spent in space. They are heroes. The crew taps on the hatch from outside, then opens it, expecting 3 tired, grinning faces, and the 3 men inside are dead. No fire, no crash, no mark on the hull. They are still strapped into their seats. They look like they fell asleep. There are dark blue blotches on their faces and a little dried blood under their noses and at their ears, and that is the only sign that something went catastrophically wrong somewhere up there in the dark, in total silence where nobody could see. Here is what happened. It is June 30th, 1971. Georgy Dobrovolsky, Vladislav Volkov, and Viktor Patsayev are coming home from Salyut 1, the first space station humans ever built. They're not wearing pressure suits. They can't. The cabin is too cramped to fit 3 grown men in suits, so the Soviet engineers made a bet. They bet that the cabin would hold its air all the way down. For everyone before them, it had. The descent begins. The spacecraft is built in 3 pieces, and to come home, the crew module has to separate from the rest. To do that, a ring of explosive bolts fires all at once and blows the sections apart. It is supposed to fire them in a gentle sequence. Instead, they all go at the same instant, and the shock of that little blast jolts something loose. A valve. A pressure equalization valve about the size of a coin. That is only ever supposed to open later, way down low, when the capsule is already in thick air and needs to let outside air in before landing. It opens now instead. At 168 kilometers up. Open to nothing. And the air starts leaving the cabin. You can hear it. A thin whistle somewhere near the floor. The men know exactly what that sound means, and they know they have seconds. One of them gets his harness open and reaches for the valve, but the valve is in a terrible spot, half hidden, and closing it by hand takes minutes you do not have. Your ears are screaming. The moisture on your tongue and your eyes is starting to boil, not because it's hot, but because there's no pressure left to keep it liquid. Gas is coming out of your own blood like bubbles in a shaken bottle. The sensors on one of the cosmonauts tell the whole story later. His heart stops within about 40 seconds. 40 seconds from a normal, healthy man on his way home to a man whose body has been turned inside out by an empty space the size of a button. They found Patsayev's body down near the valve. He almost made it. He was reaching for the one thing that could have saved them when he lost consciousness, and the capsule just kept flying, calm and automatic and perfect, carrying 3 dead men through re-entry and under the parachute and down to a gentle stop in the grass, where the rescue team was already smiling and waving at a spacecraft that had nothing left alive inside it. They are still the only human beings who have ever died in space itself, above the line, out where there's nothing. And after this, the rule changed forever. Crews got cut from 3 to 2 just so everyone could fit into a pressure suit again. 3 men had to die in their seats to prove that the bet was never worth making. Hold on to that feeling, because the next man on this list got to keep breathing, and somehow that was its own kind of nightmare. Number 2. Apollo 13. You already know this one. That's what makes it land. This isn't some obscure tragedy buried in a Soviet archive. This is the famous one, the one they made the movie about, and you probably remember it as a feel-good story. They made it home. Everyone clapped. Now imagine being inside it before anyone knew how it ends. It's April, 1970. You are 200,000 miles from Earth. Let that number sit for a second, because your brain will try to skate over it. 200,000 miles. The moon is the only thing out there bigger than a speck, and you're most of the way to it. Earth is a marble you can cover with your thumb. There is no rescue ship. There's no one within 200,000 miles of you, and there never will be. Whatever happens out here, you handle it with what's already in the cabin, or you don't handle it at all. 56 hours into the flight, Mission Control asks the crew to do something boring. Stir the oxygen tanks, just flip a fan on to keep the cold liquid oxygen from settling into layers. Routine. They've done it before. Jack Swigert reaches over and throws the switch. Inside the tank, a wire with damaged insulation sparks in a sea of pure oxygen, and pure oxygen does not mess around. The tank doesn't leak. It detonates. A whole panel blows off the side of the ship. The spacecraft lurches, alarms light up, and Swigert says the line everybody half remembers. "Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here." Calm, almost polite. The understatement of the century, spoken by a man watching his oxygen literally venting into space out the window, a silver cloud spraying away into the black, taking his air and his electricity and his ride home with it. Because that's what's gone. 2 of the 3 fuel cells, dead. Both oxygen tanks in the service module, gone or going. The command module, the cone-shaped part that's supposed to bring them home, is dying around them. And they have to shut it down completely, power it off like unplugging a house, and crawl into the lunar module, the spidery little lander that was only ever built to drop 2 men onto the moon for a couple of days. Now it has to keep 3 men alive for 4 days. It was never designed for this. It's a lifeboat with no business being a lifeboat. So they loop around the moon. They have no choice. There isn't enough power to turn around, so they have to ride the long way, swinging behind the far side, which means for a stretch they go farther from Earth than any human beings in history before or since, about 400,000 kilometers. The record for most alone a person has ever been is held by 3 men who set it by accident while trying not to die. And then it's just endurance. They shut off everything that draws power, which means they shut off the heat. The cabin temperature falls to about 3 degrees above freezing. Water beads on the walls and the cold metal and drips on them while they try to sleep. They ration water down to a few sips a day, so their bodies start drying out. And the carbon dioxide they breathe out has nowhere to go, because the scrubbers that clean the air are the wrong shape for this part of the ship. The number creeps up. Too much carbon dioxide makes you stupid first, then drowsy, then dead, and the gauge is climbing, and they have to build a fix out of a plastic bag, a sock, some cardboard, and duct tape, reading instructions up from the ground, with their lives depending on whether the tape holds. It held. They made it. Splashdown, April 17th. But strip away the happy ending, and what you've got is 3 men in a freezing, fogged-up box, slowly suffocating, farther from home than anyone has ever been, holding the thing together with tape. The universe didn't kill them. It just showed them, very clearly, how easily it could have. The next man didn't have a tank explode. His own suit tried to keep him outside. Number 3, the suit that wouldn't let him back in. There is a specific kind of horror in being trapped not by a place, but by the thing strapped to your own body. Not a locked door. Your own clothes. That's what happened to the first human being who ever floated free in space, and it almost killed him in front of the entire world on live television. It's March 18th, 1965. Alexei Leonov pushes himself out of a fabric airlock on the side of the Voska 2 spacecraft and becomes the first person to ever truly walk in space. He's on a tether, turning slowly, looking down at the whole curve of the planet. For about 12 minutes, it's the most beautiful thing a human has ever done. He can see the Black Sea. He can see clouds throwing shadows on the world. He's weightless and free and grinning inside his helmet. And while he's out there, something is happening to his suit that he doesn't notice at first. In the vacuum, with nothing pushing back on it from outside, the suit is slowly inflating, swelling up like a balloon. The pressure inside is trying to expand into the nothing around it, and the fabric and joints stiffen as they stretch tight, until Leonov goes to bend his arm and finds he can barely move it. He reaches for the camera on his chest to take a picture, and he can't reach the switch on his own leg. His hands have pulled away from the ends of his gloves. His feet have lifted out of his boots. He is rattling around inside a rigid, overinflated shell shaped like a man. And then it's time to come back in. The airlock is a tube about a meter wide. He went out head first, and he's supposed to come back in feet first, turning around at the hatch. But the ballooned suit won't fit. It's too big and too stiff to bend into the opening. He pushes, and it doesn't go. He tries again, working at it, and the suit just will not fold. He is stuck on the outside of his spacecraft in a suit that has become a coffin, shaped exactly like him, and orbital night, total darkness, is only minutes away. So he makes a decision he does not tell anyone on the ground, because he doesn't want to start a panic on live radio. He opens a valve and starts letting his own air out. He bleeds the suit down from its normal pressure to below the safety limit, low enough that his blood could start to fizz, low enough that he's gambling with the bends just to make the suit soft enough to bend. And then, against every rule, against his training, he goes in the wrong way, head first, and folds himself into a hole he no longer fits through, twisting around inside the airlock in the dark, his heart hammering at nearly 200 beats a minute, his body temperature spiking so hard that sweat is pooling up to his knees inside the suit, sloshing around his legs. He got in, he sealed the hatch, he survived, and the universe wasn't even done with him that day, because when it came time to land, the automatic system failed, and he and his crewmate came down hundreds of kilometers off target, deep in the frozen forests of the Ural Mountains, in snow up to their chests, where they spent a night listening to wolves while they waited for rescuers to ski in and find them. But it's the suit that sticks with you. Not the void. Not the cold. The idea that the thing keeping you alive can quietly turn into the thing that won't let you go, and you have to bleed it half empty and gamble your blood just to climb back inside. At least Leonov was alone with his problem. The next crew got to watch a city bus come for them with no brakes. Number 4. The bus, with no brakes. Most disasters in space are over before you can react. A spark, a bolt, an explosion, gone in an instant. This one had a clock. The crew got to feel it coming, watch the number tick down, and do math about exactly how many minutes they had left to stay conscious. It's June 25th, 1997, aboard Mir, the Russian space station, Mapunt, a sprawling thing that's been bolted together in orbit for over a decade. 3 people are aboard, 2 cosmonauts and an American astronaut named Michael Foale. And on this day, they are running a test. A cargo ship called Progress, an unmanned supply freighter, no crew, just a flying delivery truck the size of a school bus and weighing about 7 tons, is going to be flown in by hand, manually, to practice docking. The problem with a 7-ton object in space is that it does not stop. It has no brakes in the way you understand brakes. To slow it down, you have to turn it around and fire its engine the other way, in advance, with perfect timing. And the timing is off. The Progress comes in too fast. The cosmonaut at the controls is trying to judge the speed and distance of a slowly looming bus through a grainy video feed, and by the time it's clear the thing isn't slowing, it's already too close. Foale is floating by a window and he watches it happen. The Progress drifts in, huge and wrong, and grinds into one of the station's solar panels, and then its mass keeps going and it strikes the module called Spectre and punches a hole in the hull. A hole. In the wall of the place you are breathing. They hear it before they fully understand it. A hiss, and their ears pop. That deep, sickening pop you feel when pressure drops fast, except it doesn't stop, because the air of the station is now pouring out into space through a gash they can't even see. Foale later said he did the calculation almost automatically. The leak, the volume, the rate. About 23 minutes, in roughly 23 minutes, if they did nothing, the pressure would drop so low that they would start passing out, and after that, there is no coming back. So, they move. Spectre is the room that's holed, so the only way to save the whole station, and themselves, is to seal Spectre off completely. Cut it loose, like closing a watertight door on a flooding compartment in a sinking ship. But it's not a simple door. There are cables running through the open hatch, thick power cables, feeding electricity from Spectre's solar panels into the rest of Mir. To close the hatch, they have to rip those cables out by hand, knowing it's going to cost them power, working fast against the hiss and the clock and their own ears, in a station that is now slowly tumbling because the collision knocked it off balance and it's lost its grip on the sun. They got the hatch sealed, they saved the station, and they saved themselves, with minutes to spare on a countdown nobody planned. But Spectre was finished. They sealed it and never opened it again. It stayed bolted shut and airless for the rest of Mir's life, a dead room full of equipment and, by the way, full of Michael Foale's personal belongings, which were inside when the hatch closed. He sealed his own stuff into a tomb the size of a bus and floated away from it. Think about that the next time a delivery is late. Theirs showed up early, going the wrong speed, and tried to let the air out of the room. The next disaster on this list didn't give anyone 23 minutes. The wound was already there, they just didn't know it for 2 weeks. Number 5. The wound from launch. This is the cruelest one on the list, and it's cruel because of the timing. 7 people were killed by something that happened in the first 90 seconds of their flight, and then they lived for another 16 days working, laughing, doing science, sleeping, with the thing that would kill them already done, already locked in, just waiting at the bottom of the trip. It's the Space Shuttle Columbia mission STS-107. It launches on January 16, 2003. And about 82 seconds after liftoff, while the shuttle is still clawing its way up through the atmosphere, a chunk of foam insulation breaks off the big orange fuel tank. Just foam. The stuff is light, like the inside of a cooler. On the ground, it weighs almost nothing. But this piece is moving at hundreds of miles an hour relative to the shuttle, and it hits the leading edge of the left wing, and that edge isn't metal. It's a special heat shield material meant to take the fire of coming home. The foam punches a hole in it, maybe the size of a dinner plate, out of sight on the underside of a wing where no one in the cabin can see it. And here's the part that haunts the engineers to this day. Some of them on the ground were worried. They looked at the launch footage, saw the foam strike, and asked to have someone point a camera, a spy satellite, a telescope, anything, at the wing while the shuttle was in orbit just to look, to see if there was damage. And the request got turned down. Management decided it wasn't necessary, so nobody looked. The crew was never even told it might be serious. For 16 days, they orbited the Earth with a hole in their wing and no idea, and even if they had known, there may have been nothing they could do. Then it's February 1st, time to come home. Coming home in a shuttle means hitting the top of the atmosphere at around 18 times the speed of sound, and turning all that speed into heat, a sheath of glowing plasma wrapping the whole craft, thousands of degrees, like flying inside a blowtorch. The heat shield is the only thing between the crew and that fire, and the left wing has a hole in it. The superheated gas finds the hole. It pours in hotter than 5,000 degrees into the inside of the wing where nothing is built to survive it, and it starts eating the structure from the inside out, melting the metal spar that holds the wing together. From the ground, the first signs are small. A few strange temperature readings, a tire pressure sensor going quiet, little things going dark one by one. Then, the wing lets go. The shuttle is over Texas, 200,000 feet up, still going thousands of miles an hour when it comes apart. For the 7 people inside, the end came in seconds. Once control was lost, at the very edge of space, on the last morning of a 16-day mission, minutes from a runway in Florida where their families were already waiting to watch them land. Rick Husband, William McCool, Michael Anderson, David Brown, Kalpana Chawla, Laurel Clark, Elin Ramon, the first astronaut from Israel. Their debris fell across an area of Texas and Louisiana the size of a small state, and people spent months walking fields and forests picking up the pieces. A chunk of foam. That's all. Something so light you could toss it across a room moving fast enough at exactly the wrong spot, sentence 7 people 2 weeks before they died, and let them keep living the whole time, not knowing. So far, everything on this list has been about us, our machines, our mistakes, our fragile bodies. That's about to change, because the universe doesn't need us to make a mistake to destroy something. Watch what it does when we're just standing there. Number 6, the day the junkyard turned on us. Look up, right now, over your head, way up where the sky goes black. There is a layer of garbage moving at speeds you can't picture, and we put it there. This is the story of the moment that junkyard collided with itself for the first time and started breeding. It's February 10th, 2009, almost 800 kilometers up over the frozen Taymyr Peninsula in Siberia. 2 satellites are about to occupy the same tiny point in space at the same instant, and neither one is going to move. The first is Iridium 33. It's American, it's alive, it's working. At that very moment, it's relaying phone calls for people down on Earth who have no idea. The second is Cosmos 2251, and it's Russian and it's dead. A defunct military communications satellite that ran out of life years earlier and was just left up there, drifting, dark, uncontrolled. Nobody was flying it. Nobody could. They hit head-on at a closing speed of about 11.5 kilometers per second. That's roughly 26,000 miles per hour. That's something like 10 times faster than a rifle bullet. At that speed, the two satellites don't crunch or crumple the way cars do. They essentially vaporize each other on contact. All that motion turns instantly into energy, an impact carrying the punch of several hundred kilograms of high explosive, and the two spacecraft cease to exist as objects and become a cloud. A cloud of shrapnel. More than 1,800 pieces big enough to track from the ground, and countless smaller fragments too little to see, and far too fast to survive being hit by. And here's the thing about that cloud, it doesn't fall, it doesn't clear. It spreads out into a shell of debris that keeps right on orbiting the planet. Thousands of bullets with no gun, sweeping around the Earth over and over for years. Some of it is still up there. This was the first time in history that two intact satellites had ever smashed into each other by accident. The first time. And it mattered way beyond the two machines it destroyed, because of an idea with a name that should keep you up at night. It's called Kessler Syndrome. The idea is simple and awful. Every collision makes debris, and every piece of debris can cause another collision, which makes more debris, which causes more collisions. A chain reaction. Run it far enough in the space around our planet, the space we need for weather satellites, for navigation, for communication, for every crewed mission, for the space station with people living in it right now, could fill with so much shrapnel that we can't safely fly through it at all. We could wall ourselves in, trap our own species under a shell of high-speed garbage of our own making, and the station up there with humans aboard. Every so often it has to move, fire its engines and dodge because a piece of something, sometimes a piece of exactly this kind of debris, is coming too close, and a fleck of paint at those speeds hits like a bullet. That's the turn this list takes now. For 5 stories, it was the universe doing things to us. But here we are, the ones leaving a minefield floating over our own heads, the ones who turned the sky into a junkyard and then watched the junkyard start grinding itself into more junk. So that's us, at our clumsiest. Now let's see what the real thing looks like. Because in 1994, we got to sit and watch the universe do to an entire planet what those two satellites did to each other, on purpose, at a scale that makes everything you just heard look like nothing. Number 7. The week we watched. A world get hit. Here's where this video quietly stops being about us. Everything until now has had a human in it. A crew, a mistake, a machine, a fragile body in a thin suit. Even the satellite collision was our garbage, hitting our garbage. But the universe doesn't need any of that. It smashes worlds together as a matter of routine, and for 1 week in 1994, for the first time in the entire history of our species, we got to point our telescopes at one happening live, and what we saw rearranged how seriously we take the sky. There was a comet. Its name is Shoemaker Levy 9, and it made a fatal mistake. It wandered too close to Jupiter. And Jupiter is not a planet so much as a gravitational monster wearing a planet costume. 300 times the mass of Earth, with a pull so violent that it doesn't just capture things, it tears them apart. The comet came in close, and Jupiter's gravity grabbed the near side harder than the far side, and simply ripped the comet into pieces. By the time we got a good look, it wasn't a comet anymore. It was a string of glowing fragments, more than 20 of them, lined up in a perfect row like a string of pearls, like a necklace of doom, all falling toward the giant in formation. And we knew, months ahead, that they were going to hit. We did the math. We knew the dates. So every telescope on and around the Earth turned to watch, including the Hubble, and a little spacecraft called Galileo that happened to be flying toward Jupiter at the time and had the only direct seat to the show. Then, over 6 days in July, one by one, the fragments hit. They came in at about 60 kilometers per second. Each impact dumped energy that makes our entire nuclear arsenal look like a firecracker, and the planet answered with fireballs, plumes of superheated gas blasting thousands of kilometers up out of the cloud tops, higher than the Earth is wide. And then, where each piece struck, Jupiter bruised. Dark marks bloomed in the clouds, ugly black and brown scars spreading across the face of the planet. The biggest one was ringed with dark material out to about 12,000 kilometers across. That's the size of the entire Earth. A single piece of a single comet left a scar on Jupiter as wide as our whole planet, and that scar stayed there, visible for months. There was a strange detail, too. Most of the impacts happened just over the edge, on the side of Jupiter facing away from us, so we couldn't see the actual flash of the strike. We had to wait the few minutes for the planet to rotate, and then the fresh, smoking bruise would come swinging around into view, already done, like turning a body over and finding the wound. The universe didn't even let us watch the blow land. It just showed us the mark afterward. And here's why this one really gets under people's skin. Up until Shoemaker Levy 9, a lot of smart people quietly assumed that giant impacts were ancient history. The kind of thing that happened back when the solar system was young and chaotic, not something you'd ever actually catch in the act. Then we watched a world get hammered on a schedule, in real time. And the obvious thought arrived all on its own. If it can happen to Jupiter, right now, while we're watching, it can happen to us. That single week is a big part of why we started seriously hunting for the asteroids and comets that cross Earth's path. We watched a planet get hit, and we realized we'd better start checking the locks. But a comet hitting a planet is a small thing. A toy. The universe has bigger ways to end something, and the next one sent us the news 3 hours before we could even see it. Number 8, the night the ghosts arrived first. A star died, and we found out before the light got here. Sit with how strange that sentence is because it breaks the rule you believed your whole life. Light is the fastest thing there is. Nothing beats light to the finish line. When something happens out in space, the light is the messenger, and you cannot possibly know about the event before its light reaches your eyes. Except once. On one night in 1987, we got the message early, carried by ghosts. It's February 23rd, 1987. In a small companion galaxy to our own called the Large Magellanic Cloud, about 168,000 light-years away, a giant star reaches the end. Its core, which has been holding itself up for millions of years by burning fuel, finally runs out, and there's nothing left to push back against gravity, so the whole core collapses in on itself in a fraction of a second. And that collapse triggers the most violent single event the universe does short of the Big Bang itself, a supernova. The star blows itself apart in a flash that, for a little while, shines brighter than its entire galaxy. That light, that incredible galaxy outshining light, left the star and started crossing the gulf toward us. But it wasn't first. When that core collapsed, before the explosion could even punch its way out to the surface of the star, the collapse released a tidal wave of particles called neutrinos. Neutrinos are the universe's ghosts. They're almost nothing, no charge, almost no mass, and they barely interact with normal matter at all. Trillions of them are passing through your body as you listen to this, through your eyes, through the Earth itself, like the planet isn't even there. They're so slippery that catching even a few of them takes a tank of water the size of a building, buried deep underground to hide from everything else. And on that night, deep in those tanks, the ghosts arrived. Detectors in Japan, in the United States, and in Russia all caught the same thing within seconds of each other. A sudden burst of about 24 neutrinos slamming in over less than 13 seconds, when normally you'd wait ages to see a single one. A pulse. A signal. The death rattle of a star, written in the one kind of particle that could leave the collapsing core and run straight out into space without anything slowing it down. And then, 2 to 3 hours later, the light arrived. The visible flash, the thing telescopes could see, finally crossed the last stretch and lit up in the southern sky. The closest supernova anyone had seen with their own eyes in almost 400 years. By the time the light got here, the ghosts had already been and gone. We had already recorded the star's death. We just didn't have the picture yet. Think about what that means. The light and the ghosts both left at almost the same moment, after the same journey of 168,000 years. And the ghosts won by a few hours, because they escaped the dying star a little earlier and a little cleaner, while the light had to fight its way out through the exploding wreckage. We caught a death notice that was 168,000 years old, and we caught it early. And the star left something behind in all that wreckage. The crushed core, a city-sized lump so dense a spoonful would weigh as much as a mountain. For almost 40 years we couldn't find it in the mess. Only recently did we finally catch its glow, hiding in the debris, exactly where the ghosts told us it would be. A whole star can die, and the first thing to reach you isn't even the light. Now hold that thought, because the next event didn't send light at all. It sent a shudder through the shape of space itself. Number 9. The day we heard. Space-time ring. In 2015, something passed through your body, through the Earth, through everything. It stretched you and squeezed you, changed your height, and the distance between you and everyone you love, and it was the most violent event humanity had ever detected. And you felt absolutely nothing, because the thing that reached us wasn't light or sound or particles. It was a ripple in the shape of reality itself. To understand it, you have to give up one comfortable idea: that space is just empty nothing, a stage where things happen. It isn't. Space is a thing. It can bend, it can stretch, it can carry waves, the way the surface of a pond can. We call the fabric space-time, and most of the time it lies flat and still and you never notice it. But move something massive enough, violently enough, and it makes waves, actual ripples that race outward across the universe at the speed of light, stretching space one way and squeezing it the other as they pass. Now make the most massive, most violent thing you can imagine. Take 2 black holes. Not stars, black holes, the collapsed corpses of giant stars, each one with more mass than 30 of our suns crammed into a region you could drive across, with gravity so strong that nothing, not even light, ever climbs back out. Put 2 of them in orbit around each other, and let them fall in. They spiral together, faster and faster, closer and closer, whipping around each other thousands of times, until in the final fraction of a second they're moving at a good chunk of the speed of light. 2 black holes, billions of tons of pure collapsed gravity each slamming into one another and merging into a single, bigger black hole. And in that last fifth of a second, the collision did something almost impossible to say out loud. It took about 3 entire suns worth of mass and converted it directly into energy, into waves in space-time. For that briefest instant, that one merging pair of black holes radiated more power than every single star in the entire visible universe combined. Every star. All of them. Added up. And this beat it in the form of a scream through the fabric of space. That scream traveled for about 1.3 billion years. It left before there were animals on Earth. It crossed a distance that makes everything else on this list look like it happened next door. And the whole time, it was spreading out and getting fainter, until by the time it reached us, it was almost nothing at all. Almost. On September 14th, 2015, it arrived. And waiting for it, finally, were 2 machines, one in Louisiana, one in Washington State, each with a pair of tunnels 4 kilometers long, built for the single purpose of feeling a ripple in space. When the wave rolled through, it stretched those 4-kilometer arms and then squeezed them by an amount almost too small to be real. Less than 1/10,000th the width of a single proton. A change smaller than anything you have a word for. And we measured it. The 2 detectors caught the wave 7/1000ths of a second apart, exactly the time it takes light to cross from one to the other, because the wave was sweeping over the planet at light speed, and we watched it arrive at one and then the other, like watching a wave roll across a harbor. When you speed the signal up into sound, it's a little rising tone, a chirp, swooping up and cutting off. The sound of 2 black holes becoming one, a billion light years away. For the entire existence of our species, this was happening out there constantly, and we were deaf to it. That day, for the first time, we heard. A whole new sense switched on. And the first thing it heard was the biggest collision since the universe began, whispering by, while everyone on Earth went about their day and felt nothing at all. We can hear the universe scream now. But the most unsettling thing it does in total silence, and we almost missed it. Number 10. The star that simply vanished. Everything on this list so far has been loud, Explosions, collisions, a star tearing itself apart, the fabric of space ringing like a bell. You've been braced for noise. So let's end with the quietest thing in the universe, because once you understand it, it's worse than all of them. A star can disappear. Not explode. Not collapse in a blaze. Just stop being there. Here 1 year, gone the next, with no flash, no scar, no goodbye. And we watched it happen. The star didn't have a pretty name. We call it N6946BH1, and it lived in a galaxy about 20 million light years away, nicknamed the Fireworks Galaxy, which is a grim joke considering how this turns out. And this was not some dim little ember of a star. It was a red supergiant, roughly 25 times the mass of our sun, one of those genuinely enormous stars, the kind that is supposed to die in the most spectacular way there is. A star that size has one ending written for it in every textbook. It goes supernova, it detonates, it outshines its whole galaxy and scatters its guts across space and leaves a glowing wreck behind for everyone to admire for thousands of years. That's the deal. That's what a star like this is supposed to do. In 2009, it looked like it was starting. The star suddenly brightened, flaring up to about 1 million times the light of our sun, glowing hard for several months. Astronomers watching it would have leaned in. Here it comes. The big one. The supernova this giant was always destined for. And then it didn't come. The star didn't explode. It faded. It dimmed down and kept going. And by 2015, when astronomers pointed their telescopes back at the spot where a star 25 times the mass of the sun had been blazing for all of human history, there was nothing there. No supernova, no expanding cloud, no bright remnant, just an empty patch of sky and a faint, dying trace of infrared warmth, cooling where a giant used to be. So what happened to it? The best answer we have is the one that makes your skin crawl. They call it a failed supernova. The idea is that the core collapsed the way it's supposed to, but instead of bouncing back and blowing the star apart, the collapse just kept going. The whole thing fell inward and made a black hole right there, and the new black hole swallowed the rest of the star before the explosion could ever happen. The brief flare in 2009 was the only funeral it got, a last cough of light as the outer layers got the faintest push, before everything else fell silently down the drain the star had just become. The star didn't die. It got eaten. By the thing it turned into. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This might not be rare. The best estimates suggest that something like 10 to 30% of these giant stars could end this way, quietly imploding instead of exploding, just winking out and leaving a black hole where a sun used to be. Which means the galaxy could be full of these. Quiet graves. Black holes that were born in total silence, that nobody saw form, drifting out there in the dark with no supernova, no scar, nothing to mark the spot where something enormous simply stopped existing. We point our best telescopes at it even now, and we still argue about exactly what we're seeing in that fading warmth. But the spot where the star was is still dark. A star 25 times the size of the sun, bright enough to see across 20 million light years of space, can vanish without a sound. And if we hadn't happened to be watching that exact patch of sky, we would never have known it was gone. That's the most unsettling thing space does. Not the explosions you can see coming, the disappearances you can't. Somewhere out there, right now, a giant is going quiet, and no one is watching, and nothing will ever mark the place where it was.